just two things to say about Jeff Kinney. Last May, Time magazine named its 100 most influential people of the world. And if you, all 100 are on the cover, and Danielle's going to help me here. Who's this guy in the corner?
Jeff.
Yep. So there you go, Time magazine. And from USA Today, my newspaper, last week, it was the bestsellers of 2009. You'll see Jeff Kinney at number 7, number 8, number 18, and number 24. That's for the entire year. And the most astounding fact was that Jeff Kinney sold more books than Dan Brown in 2009. Now, of course, Dan Brown can't draw. So, with all of that, I give you the man behind the wimpy kid, Jeff Kinney.
And you'll notice that I'm in the very bottom corner of the Time magazine, so I was the 100th most influential person. I was almost off the list, so don't be too impressed. But thank you so much for having me here in this beautiful library. I've been excited to come out here for, is it almost a year, Bob? I was just checking to see if he was paying attention. And, I thought I would tell you about kind of my story, of the story of Diary of a Wimpy Kid and how it came to be. And I wanted to first say that I actually didn't set out to become a children's author. I had a whole different plan in mind, and I'll tell you all about that. Now let's see if this works. Oh, good. I like that spirit. Here we go. We'll say pause. Come on, work for me. I practiced this, and now it's not going to work. Okay, and okay. No, almost. It is not working. There we go. Okay, this was my college comic strip. I had wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist, and this is my college comic strip called Igdoof. And yes, my character is sitting on the toilet reading. That can kind of give you an idea of the kind of humor that I had and still have. But I really wanted to be a newspaper cartoonist. That was my big dream. And so what happened was, I was encouraged along the way. This is the Washington Post. Back when I was, I think, about 22, it says it there somewhere. I was 22 years old, and the Washington Post did this big article on me, and it said, Igdoof takes on the real world, and, Jeff Kinney's going to go out there and be a big success. But the truth was, I did not have success in my immediate future. This is what I got in the mail when I tried to get syndicated. This is what a rejection letter looks like. Right? And I got lots and lots of these. They might as well have just put the word no on a piece of paper. But if you're ever trying to become an artist or a writer, you can expect a lot of these, of rejection letters. And you can't get too discouraged, because if I had, I wouldn't have kept going. But the problem was, I was actually not a very good artist, and I'm still not a very good artist. So what I decided was, they were right to reject me. I didn't have a really good shot at being a cartoonist. So when I had my big aha moment was when I realized that if I drew as a kid and wrote as a kid, which was kind of the top of my talent level, that I might have a shot. So that's how Greg Heffley was born. And here is my very first idea page. It's a little blown out there, but you can see that what I wanted to do is I wanted to just start writing this book, right? I said, I've got this great idea, Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and I want to just start writing this book. But I said, I'm going to be a little bit patient here. I'm going to go ahead and fill up this sketchbook with ideas first. And it was 77 pages long, and the first few pages went really, really well. And you can see that that's where some of the characters were born. Like, this is Greg right here, the first drawing of him, and there's the first drawing of Rowley. And so I thought that I was just going to cruise. I did about 3 or 4 of these a night. I thought I'd be writing my book for real in a few weeks. And we'll get back to that in a little bit. Like I said, I've always really liked stories. Whenever a priest or a teacher or a principal got up on stage and started telling a story about their childhood, my ears would always perk up. So what I did when I started writing down ideas for my book is I tried to remember things from my childhood. And I'll actually tell you a funny story of something funny that happened to me recently, the kind of story I really like. A few months ago, I had a bunch of people coming to my house on the same day. I had somebody delivering lumber for the house. I had somebody delivering, weed killer, all sorts of different things. But the person I was most focused on was this guy who was going to come and take care of my lawn. And I said to him, before you get here, call me 5 minutes before because I want to talk to you about my lawn. And so this guy calls me and then he shows up at my door. And then I start walking him around my yard and I said, this area is really weedy, there's problems over here, what should I do? And he gave me advice about that part of my lawn. And then I went to another part of the lawn and said, this area doesn't get enough light, what should I do? And he said, well, you should use Scott's brand, blah, blah, blah. Gave me lots of good advice, but I noticed that he started to get a little bit more fidgety with each area of the lawn that I brought him to. And finally I said, okay, I'd like to take you to my backyard because I have some questions about that. And he said, I'm just the lumber guy. And I looked out in my street and there was a truck full of wood, lumber. And so I made a fool out of myself, and a few minutes later the real lawn guy came. But I just love stories like that, things that you can capture that are about ordinary life. I wanted to show you that some of the stories in my books come from stories from my childhood or from my brother or my family. And here's a picture right here in the second book, I think it is, where Greg is afraid of the starter's pistol at the swim meet. He's afraid that it shoots real bullets, right? And so Greg here is ducking out underwater waiting for the bullet to land, just like my brother did. So I love those kinds of stories. Another story that's true life from my childhood is that, like Greg, I used to hide out from my swim coach in the locker room, right? And I would just hide out for the whole practice and sit there shivering, in the locker room, in the stall. And eventually I got the idea that I didn't want to freeze to death, right? So I would wrap myself in toilet paper, right? This used to be my most embarrassing story, but now I'm not ashamed at all to tell it, because it's in my books, that's right. And so I wanted to show you that some of the stories in the books actually come from things that are sort of in my subconscious that I don't really remember. I found this picture a while ago in my garage, right? This is actually my ex-girlfriend's mother accidentally taking a picture of herself. And when I saw that picture, I laughed so hard and I kept it. And I only found it a few weeks ago. And then I realized that it inspired this picture from the book, which is the teenager's party in book 2. So you can see that, some things just kind of stick around in your mind, right? So eventually, like I said, I started writing in that idea book, and eventually, it was a long time later, 4 years later, the last page looked like this, and it was so packed that I swear to you, I wouldn't even be able to read it today without a magnifying glass. But it took me about 4 months to fill up just one of those idea pages. So it took from end to end about 4 years to get all my ideas down. Then what I did was I started publishing the book on funbrain.com, right, which was a lot of fun. I thought it was so cool because I would publish a new entry every night, and I was getting emails from all over the globe. I would publish an entry from my basement in Plainville, Massachusetts, this old basement, and I would instantly get emails from China, Pakistan, Greece, Russia, from people who were waiting to see what I was going to write next. And I thought, that's so powerful. You kids are growing up in a world where you can broadcast to the whole world. You can shoot things across the world at the speed of light. Whereas people in my generation and older, if we had a pen pal and we got 2 letters back and forth in one school year, that was like a really good pen pal relationship. So things have really changed. So I brought my publishing sample to New York Comic Con, actually in 2006. Once I had published a book on Funbrain, I brought it to New York Comic Con. And I found an editor I completely lucked out. This guy saw my work. He looked at it for maybe 30 seconds, a minute, and he said, this is exactly what we're looking for. So I can't tell you how lucky I am to have had that happen, because usually when you put a book out into the world, you have to get an agent, and it takes several years to get people to pay attention, and you get lots of rejection letters. So on the book side of things, once I became an author and put myself in that